Welcome to the Monopoly Mindset, the podcast where we uncover the strategies to build your real estate portfolio one property at a time.
We're your hosts, Tyler and Tommy, here to share our story of playing real-life Monopoly.
Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, this is your go-to resource for mastering the real estate game.
So grab your board, roll the dice, and let's buy Boardwalk together.
Welcome back to the Monopoly Mindset, episode 43. Excited to give everybody an update today. We had a property sale, so we're excited to kind of go through some of the final closing scenarios that we had to deal with. And Ty's got some updates about his bathroom that he's been renovating.
Yeah, and I think the most exciting thing is that you were on the Wealth Juice podcast. This just dropped last week, so everybody go listen to that, and you can hear a little more about Tommy's story. So we'll link that in the description. But that was awesome and exciting for you.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's fun to be interviewed kind of by your idols, which feels weird because they're kind of like friends at the same time. But you definitely look up to, real estate investors that are investing at a higher level from you and that you're learning from. So I enjoyed it. I liked sharing my story because it's funny. You have so many friends and family that you keep repeating the same conversations over with. At least in my opinion, they're all like, "Oh yeah, so like tell me more about your real estate story." It's like, okay, I will, but like I talk about this nonstop. Like if you listen to some of the stuff I put out, or like I'm pretty sure I've told you about it 3 times already. But I get it. It's a little bit confusing. So it's always nice to like do an episode where it dives in a little bit to my personal background and where I got started and whatnot.
Yeah, and that was the first podcast you ever did. I'm assuming that's not like your own podcast.
Yeah, actually, it was the first podcast that I'd ever done. So I was just recovering from a cold, and I kept feeling like I had like this level of brain fog that like I couldn't speak as correctly as I wanted to. But I think you said you listened to it. I'm gonna listen to it here tomorrow. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm assuming it went pretty well.
Yeah, so we'll link it in the description. Obviously, we talk about like our networking group a lot, and just for people that don't know, we are in like the Wealth Juices. They call it the Inner Circle, but it's I forget how they market it, but I just call it like a networking group. But I think they market it more as like they teach you how to buy your first rental property. So go check it out. We both enjoy it. We join like weekly calls and everything. So yeah, it's been good for us the past year and a half.
Yeah, there's weekly calls. We join on Wednesdays for like an hour. There's a call about just discussing your real estate portfolio, what questions you have going. And it's nice just to go in there and spitball with other real estate investors and get some ideas and some answers to some of the problems or just, creative problem solving together. There's a lot of value in there. And then they kind of do it's almost like an off-market podcast. They'll bring in like somebody that they've interviewed on the podcast and we get like one-on-one access with really cool real estate investors, which is always fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like, which we haven't really talked a lot about because me and you don't actually do, but like Bigger Pockets early days, they talked about going to local meetups like nonstop. And the thing with that is like there's a lot of small towns or certain areas that just aren't meetups. Because like I've looked pretty much in every location that I've lived in, and like they're definitely in like all cities. But I was like, I don't know, I'm always like an hour from a big city, so there's not always like local real estate meetups in every location. So, but it kind of feels that way. It's just virtual.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've definitely enjoyed it, and it's just nice having almost like a real estate coach or like an assistant that you can lean on, ask specific questions to, because you always kind of get stuck. And like even Bigger Pockets, they always talk about analysis paralysis, and the number one reason people don't get started in real estate is because they never start. And it's like if you just make that first little effort and get started, like then you can start growing your journey. And I feel like they help a little bit with the analysis paralysis because just sometimes saying something out loud that you're struggling with or weighing with, it's like, oh wow, it's much simpler now that I spoke through it versus just keeping it in your own head.
Yeah. One interesting thing about them is like I feel like me and you started a podcast when we were still like fairly small real estate investors compared to like your Brandon Turners, but they started their podcast when Corey had 2 units, which like that's kind of scary to do, right? It's like you feel so like, oh, I don't really know anything, and then now you look at them, it's been 6 years, they're still going, and they've grown real estate and like podcast wise tremendously. So yeah, it's a inspiring story, and they're like local to me anyway, like Philly area, so it's cool, and they're yeah, go check them out. But anyway,
Hey, Corey's got Airbnb in Tampa, so semi-local. I do want to catch up with him one of these times when he's down here and link up and play some golf. I think that would be a lot of fun just to get out with him.
yeah, so good luck, and I guess you can go first because you sold another house, so up in Scranton. Do you want to tell us about that? I
Yeah,
know
I'll talk through
obviously
that. And
good, but you had some hiccups.
yeah, real quick, speaking of golf, I know I have a lot of haters that were reaching out and making fun of me all last week because I was posting a lot of my golf scores and photos of golf. Yes, I live in Florida. I did take the week off to do a golf trip. It was a lot of fun getting out there, and part of me thinks like that's what retirement will feel like, just getting to go out and golf for an entire week straight and like deal with random real estate calls that can come up or like property management type calls. But that's like the freedom goal, right? Is like you can just be on the golf course and answer some of those calls and like eventually let that passive income add up. So
Well, weren't
that's what
you
I'm working
also
towards.
weren't you
What?
golfing with like 8 retired people? You were
I
the only
was,
one.
yes. I was. I mean, most of them are retired. Some maybe semi-retired. Some do have full-time jobs that they take the week off. Some were working a little bit later in the evenings, the way that I was. But for the most part, it is a group of older gentlemen. It's my father-in-law and a lot of his buddies from high school and surrounding areas. They come down. It's ironic. The trip actually is what got us to move to Florida because we went on this golf trip. Jeff invited me down, and then Sarah and like Brenda came down, and we are like, we love living in Florida and going on this golf trip. And we went back the next year, and then 2 years later, we ended up all moving down here full time. So,
Yeah, well, it was 65 today, Maryland, so that's a start.
wow, there you go. You still have snow, or did it all melt?
A little bit where there was like big piles from plowing, basically, but that's about
Hmm.
it. Yeah, I'm sure we're not out of it
Cool.
yet. It'll probably be snowing again next week, but
But speaking of how to move to Florida, one of the best ways is to sell a property. And that's what we were able to do. We had our property listed 65 East Overbrook. We were talking about it a lot. We had an offer, it fell through. We put it back, we lowered the price. We were not getting offers. We were nervous. We ended up getting an offer a little bit lower. I think it was 227 or something, and we bumped them up to 237 with the seller assist so that we would net $230,000 from the total sale, which we were pretty happy about. Things were going relatively smooth towards the closing process, and then like the final week as we're getting ready to nail down the date of the closing, we came up with an issue with DAMA, which is the Dallas Area Municipal Authority. And apparently, Dallas has a slight issue with water. It's not retaining, like, the drainage there just isn't good. Water sits in the town a lot. Like, they have flooding issues from time to time. And because of that, like, the government is kind of stepping in and trying to figure out, like, what this water issue is. And one of the things that they're saying is that there's some pipes that they put in when they built the infrastructure 50 years ago that are starting to break. And so they're like leaking water, not like sewage water per se, but like the main water pipes going into the house. So it's just not, and it's not like a ton, but like the water will bubble and it'll bubble underground and you really can't notice it. But they realized they have this problem and they didn't know when and how to fix it. So now every time in Dallas that you sell or buy a property, they have what's called a bilateral inspection where somebody has to come in and scope like the main water pipe from the road all the way to the property. And we had been working with a realtor and the other realtor both weren't from the area, and I don't believe the title company we were using was from the area either. So it kind of fell through the cracks. Like it was just something that just no one really caught until the very end. You went to get like to make sure that DAMA was paid, So you have to pay like the sewer, water, trash to them. And when they went to figure that out, they're like, hey, you never got this bilateral inspection. We hurried up and got this bilateral inspection, hoping that it would pass and we could close on like Monday. Turns out we failed, which was not very good news. And I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? How do you fail a bilateral inspection and what happens from here? And like I was blaming Mike Buska because he had something similar and he was like, "Oh, always get the insurance, always get the insurance." And I'm like, because
Yeah.
I didn't get the insurance after Mike said that, I'm going to get screwed. I know it. And what do you know? The first time I have an opportunity to get screwed, I get freaking nailed.
I get those letters I used to get those letters all the time. It's like insure the pipes coming into your house for only $10 a month, and you're like, nah. And then $5,000, $6,000 later, you kind of wish you did, but it's the
Yes,
way insurance
so
works.
exactly. But then, like, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but like when I was starting to get quotes and whatnot, like one of the guys I brought up, I was like, oh, kind of rambling and saying, I wish I would have got that insurance. It's very valuable. And the guy said, a lot of the times the insurance, it becomes like a litigation issue where it's like, well, you're covered for X, but you're not covered for Y. We'll cover for the pipe repair, but the pipe repair's $400, but we won't cover for like the digging. And the digging is like the $6,000. You got to trench everything out and like dig up the dirt and like that's where you get whacked with like more of the charge. But they won't cover that. They'll only cover the pipe. Then you have to fight with them. So a lot of the people I was getting quotes from said half the time it's not even worth dealing with the insurance companies.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's right or wrong, but I will tell you, Dallas is definitely scaring me right now because this is something that they're saying the only way they can get this money is from a closing, which it does make sense, right? If you sell a property and make $50,000, they think that you can pay for it then versus any other
So yeah,
time.
I didn't really understand like usually you either have to fix something before you close or you would get a quote. Let's say like to fix like a roof, you would get a quote, it's $10,000. So then you pay the seller $10,000 extra at closing. Or like $10,000 off the price or however you want to negotiate it. But this was kind of a weird thing where like you paid I think $6,000, right? And it went into like an escrow account, or you paid more than that. You paid 12, and then it went into an escrow account, and it's supposed to only cost 6, and you'll get 6 back. So I don't know. I never really heard of like getting money back later after closing.
Yeah, so it was a very weird process, and like I'm an aggressive individual and I try to get things done quickly. I always try to get things done quickly. I hate when like I have to, deal with things for a long extended period of time. And this closing process, we listed the property, I think like in December, and now we're pushing like I don't know, trying to remember the exact date that we closed, but I think it was what, like the beginning of February or the end of January, somewhere in there. But we're pushing almost like 90 days being on the market, and like we needed the money from the sale of the property. We had some other expenses that were coming up, and like I had the date in my mind that it was going to be Monday. We had other bills coming up that would be due like Friday, and so I was hoping to get the money and like be able to pay the other bills and whatnot. So the way my mind worked was to Ty's point, I was told that I couldn't close until I needed 3 quotes from different vendors that could do the bilateral work that needed to be done. Basically, dig up the pipe and fix the pipe. And so this all happened Friday that I was told I needed these inspections. So I went ahead and called, I needed the 3 inspections, and then they would take the total number of the quote, which would be, let's say, $5,000, for example. They would double that amount, $10,000. The escrow company would hold $10,000. Escrow company actually pays, well, it's not escrow, it's title, but title's acting like escrow in the scenario. Title's holding the money, the $10,000, and they're paying the vendor. And the way that they did it this way, to your point, like is a little bit different than a roof. I think because a roof is a more standard price for the most part. It's like, hey, it's $8,000. We're just going to give you $8,000 off. For whatever reason, this process, sometimes the price raises and goes, like they do see it going up. So they want to hold double the amount. And I'm not sure why they don't just let the other people pay it, but I guess it's because like what if they pay 10 and then like what do you do with the extra 2? Like how does it get back to me? It's just cleaner to keep it with title.
Yeah,
So I
that makes
think
sense.
that's how they do it. But long story short, me being aggressive, I went ahead and called like 5 plumbing companies like when I got the news Friday morning, and I was just very devastated and upset. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna, attack this with everything I had. Called five or six different companies. End up getting 2 quotes by the end of Friday, and I got 2 more Saturday. So I have 4 quotes by the end of the weekend, and it was not easy to get those quotes. Like I was on the phone for like hours. Basically, my entire Friday ended up being shot trying to get these quotes and trying to get this solved. To the point that I worked so hard in trying to get this accomplished that my realtor said, "Tom, you know what? You'd be a great realtor." And I started laughing. But he was basically saying because of all the random bureaucracy that I dealt with in such a quick, timely fashion to like try to get something to closing and like just randomly learning all of the loopholes that you have to deal with when going through Dallas Area Municipal Authority to figure out, the protocols. Like it's not just that you can call these companies and get a quote. I had to call company A to go out there and like complete the inspection, and then once the inspection was done, that company A had to send everything out to company B, C, D, E. So I have to get like multiple companies talking to each other to look at the pipe inspection and then also give me estimates of what they think it would be. Some companies want to look at the property. I'm not at the property. I had to coordinate people to go and show them or let them into the property. So it was a lot of effort. Long story short,
So
go ahead.
yeah, yeah, keep going. I want to know if the work's been done yet and if you got the money back.
So Monday comes around, and the woman that was like supposed to handle the work at Dama is like, "Hey, you know what? I'm super busy today. Like, I'm not gonna get through with this." And I'm like extremely annoyed at this point because I wanted to close on Monday. So I tried beating her up, but like sometimes you can just tell like this woman's not in the mood to deal with you, and I guess she had a lot on her plate at work, and it's technically our fault that we're trying to expedite this because it should have been done like 3 weeks ago, but no one in our process knew that it needed to be done because it kind of makes sense. It's a area they're not dealing with unless if you're in that area, you wouldn't really know. So she ended up making us wait till Tuesday, and she got us all the information we needed for Tuesday, and I believe the closing was on Wednesday. So it took a little bit of time. All the quotes together, the one that we ended up picking was $6,000, I believe, and they had to save double that, so they saved $12,000 going into it. I had an idea that when it was going to happen, it was going to cost more because I had multiple quotes and some were higher, some were I don't think anybody was lower. I pretty much went with the lowest quote, but there were conversations with some of the other companies that Dama wants me to fix, let's say, 6 feet of the pipe, but there's a chance that there's like 9 or 10 feet of the pipe that needs replaced once they get in there and do the digging and like figure out exactly what's wrong. And so, to Ty's point, it's been snowing, very cold up there. They did delay this process almost a month. It did just get completed about a week and a half ago once the ground finally thawed out. They dug it up, and instead of it being the 6 feet it was supposed to be, they needed to do 10 feet, which obviously added money to my cost. So my cost went from $6,000 to $10,000, and they just completed the work.
$1,000
And
a
now,
foot?
yeah, not fun, not
Yeah.
happy. Now I'm going to get a check for $2,000, which I'm happy to get an additional check back. It could have been worse. I could have potentially owed more, I guess. Every part of this felt like a scam and that I couldn't do. I had no voice. It's not like you can split this with the home buyer. You're just stuck. And it was infuriating in multiple avenues because you just like know that you're going to be out money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, it's definitely $10,000 that you didn't expect when you decide to sell, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to get 40," and then you don't account for this inspection that you need. So that's not good. But I do want to know, what did you walk away with? What did you buy the property for? I'm assuming you refinanced somewhere in there, and just kind of, now that you sold and the property's, done. What's like the overall numbers?
Yes, so we sold the property for 230,000. I think originally we bought it for 89,000. So, I
In
mean, I
like
don't, it's almost,
2018,
yeah,
19?
2018. 18 or 19. But yeah, we bought it for like in 2018 or 19 for $89,000. Now in 2026, 7 years later, we ended up selling for $230,000. So
Did you do a rehab in there at all?
yeah, when we bought it, it was a hoarder house. So we had to go in there and
Okay.
rip like everything out. We did fix it up a little bit. We added a bedroom in the basement. We kind of remodeled the basement, did some slight renovations. So it looked better from that. And then we ended up having a pipe burst in that house, and the pipe burst money was able to basically repair and replace like the entire kitchen, do some other minor updates and upgrades throughout the property. So it was brand new painted, it had new flooring everywhere. Like the house looked like it was a lot better shape. And that led into our decision to sell was we just put a brand new kitchen, all this money into this property. It's probably at like top value right now. If we keep putting renters in there, the counters get a little bit more scratched. They don't look as new as they were. And that went into like our thought process as to selling the property. It was also in the township where we're trying to buy more houses in the borough and not have to deal with some of the bureaucracy in the township that we have to deal with.
Yeah. So,
But
90 plus probably like 20. I think your renovation was like 20,000. So the basically the house doubled over 7 years, plus all the cash flow that you got in those 7 years.
yeah, and then on top of that, like so we to your point, the one we're probably at roughly 20 to 30,000 that we've like put into the property for sure. But then we've also had, so you could say 90 plus 30, yeah, we're almost at like double, including that money. But when we had the pipe burst, we got like $50,000 that we were able to put into the property. A lot of it went to the repairs of like the water damage, but also added like, the additional remodeling that we were able to do. So I'm not saying got gifted, but like we got extra money to put into the house, which also helped aid its resale value. We did put a new roof on there at one point in time as well. So when we went to sell, because once we got it fixed up, we actually did get it appraised and like pulled out some money. So we already had like equity that we tapped out of this property twice. We actually refied twice on this house. And so when we just went to sell it this other time, there wasn't as much like built up money. It wasn't like we had like a $90,000 loan that we put 20% down. So like we just got, 200 grand when we closed. Like, you wish
Yeah.
that was the case, but we've already cycled and recycled the money out of this property two times. So this third time was really just recouping what was left in that refinance, which when people refinance, like you always think that, oh, you're taking all the money out of the property. Like one of the more beautiful things about real estate is like you have to leave 20% in. So if a property's worth $100,000 and you refinance, the max loan you can get is 80,000. You'll always have that
And
20
I think
grand.
that's even like, I actually don't know a single bank that will let you do a refinance and leave in 20%. It's all 25 now. A lot of them will let you buy a house with 20% down, but especially a cash out refinance, I don't know any that'll do 25 or
Well,
20
I
anymore.
think the way that you're thinking as an investor, I think for a personal mortgage, I believe they allow
Yeah.
80% LTV. To clarify, like in case anybody's looking at their primary, I think they will do 80%. But yes, for sure, you have to do 75% LTV on
Like
investment
DSCR.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah, DSCR or like main, like actually this bank that we refinanced with was 70%. So when we got it reappraised for 230, it didn't really matter. We weren't pulling out, 75. We only got 70% of that. So we actually left more cash in the property at that time.
Right. But to your point, you refinanced twice. Theoretically, you bought two properties. in that I don't know if you did buy two properties, but theoretically you refinance two times, get two properties in those 7 years. So it's like that initial $20,000. Well, let's just say you put down 20 and then put in 20. So we'll just say that initial 50,000, including closing. Over 7 years, you basically walked away with your 50, but then you also got two properties out of it for free. So that's one thing is like, you always do the math of like, oh, in 30 years it'll be paid off and then it'll be worth this much with appreciation. But realistically, like if you're trying to grow fast, you're going to refinance it like every 5 years. So in 30 years, it's like, oh, I still owe 80% because I refinanced it so many times. But in that 30 years, instead, you could buy five properties. So yeah, I agree. It's like it's bittersweet because I'm kind of in the same boat where like I got a HELOC, maxed it out on my old house. So now if I were to sell, I'd walk away with like 40,000 instead of like 140,000. But that allowed me to buy like two other properties basically. So, but
Yeah, and my
congrats, yeah, it's
story's
exciting.
even thank you. My story's even funnier in the sense that that property that we bought it with house money, coming from 20 Richards when we bought that for cheaper and then refied that once we added the bedroom and like remodeled that property a little bit. So that's really we bought that for 100 and refied for 150 like a year later. We took that money and used that to buy 65 East Overbrook. So like at that point everything started from just one initial purchase and then like playing with house money from there. And then everything from 65 East Overbrook, refining twice. We did buy a third property and then we refied the third time all three properties and then used that to buy two more properties. So really it's three properties. And then then we refied again and bought a fourth property. So like, and that refinance has happened like several times. I didn't think I did it three times, but I guess from like the initial purchase to it was maybe three times that we ended up refinancing, and each time we did buy more properties with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
I really
to
wish
run
I bought
through,
properties before 2019 so I can have that like insanely quick appreciation and then refinance.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of extra value, and like not that I did anything better than anybody else, but when you were buying and rates were 3%, like my properties appreciated. So instead, I got lucky. I just got started earlier. Like it is what it is. But
Yeah, do you ever see those memes on Instagram where it's like a playing Call of Duty? It's like me in seventh grade instead of buying real estate, or like it's like what were
yeah,
we
yeah.
doing? Why weren't we just buying duplexes?
It was too freaking young. They wouldn't let us. It's like the biggest issue.
Well, in 2007, we probably could have gotten approved. They're like, "How old are you?" And like, we hand them the bench warmers thing that says like, "I'm 18" in crayon.
They're like, you want six houses? Okay, here you go. Yeah, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna pay these off anyway, and we're gonna screw the entire market over. Um, but just to rehash like some of the actual numbers after closing, since we refinanced three times and like didn't have a ton of equity per se in the property, our loan at the time was $160,000. We sold again for 230, so the gross profit was roughly $70,000. After taxes, you're going to set aside like roughly $15,000. Realtor commission was like roughly like 10 grand, so we're at like $46,000. I was really like our profit that we made was like roughly like $45,000 at closing. But then we had like other expenses that we had to pay for. Like there were times I put some extra money into the property, like just or the company when we like had expenses that came up and we didn't like have enough to cover it. So we kind of paid ourselves back. We also took, we believe in like paying ourselves a little bit of profit. So like we sold a property. I think we all paid ourselves like $2,000 out of the company. So it's like a nice little profit boost on top, things like that. But for the most part, we've talked about it a lot on the podcast. Like TDJ was in a position where they wanted to stabilize their portfolio. They didn't really want, me or Dan or Jeff adding more money to the company. We thought it would be much more beneficial for the company to sell that property, which wasn't a great performing asset, and just leave like $20,000 to $30,000 into the company, because it, instead of like saving 50% a month and like trying to keep all that money in the company, it just was running thin. Like we were almost saving 100% in the company, and we just kept running thin. We're like, you know what? We really want like a nice nest egg that can start like front loading our capex, and like in case of repairs come up, we have money set aside, like a little bit more than we had previously. And it's a tough line. Like as a real estate investor, you see that you have 50 grand in an account, and you're like, okay, I can buy XYZ property, and like I'll figure it out later. And like it's a long game of like trying to spread yourself as thin as possible, and then being like, oh shoot, like I got caught with my pants down, and like now I need more assets. Like it's funny, but like we just really wanted to be like a little bit more protected with like money we had in the account for any capex expenses that would come up. So it was a really good decision to help stabilize. As we'll get into another podcast, we had said issue come up, so that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. We haven't really talked about like our goals or anything for 2026, but I'm kind of in that boat as well where I was trying to grow as fast as possible, so I just like I don't have like a savings for potential real estate. Like if I have a $20,000 roof, I'm not sure where I'd get it. I would get it like I don't know, 401k, or like that's kind of always in the back of my mind, but like I'm finally like okay, I
You're
got
saying just cash out your 401k, right? Just cash out
not,
401k.
not yet. Maybe. But like I scratched the itch of buying real estate enough where I'm gonna get a nest egg to make me feel better, like yeah. So I'm kind of just at that same phase personally of like until I get like a solid nest egg, like a certain amount per property. People say like 6 months, 6 months mortgage per property. Then yeah, I'm also kind of just not really looking
So
to buy real estate because basically what I've done is like save up X amount, drain my account down to like $2,000, and then rinse and repeat. And I just obviously that's not sustainable because to your point, something happens, then like I don't know.
dude, it is so tough though, because like I'm with you, and I want to pick your brain about like something else about that topic. But as much as I say like I want to do what you're saying, like then I'll see a property and I'm like,
Oh,
oh my gosh,
100%.
that
Yeah,
property fits everything I want to do. It is
yeah,
a significantly great cash flowing property. I can burr the shit out of that. Like,
yeah,
let's go.
100%.
And
Like
it's
as soon
like,
as you have that 6 month like nest egg, you start to look at properties and you're like, well, I could probably buy this one. Yeah, that's what I've done 5 times. That's why, like, I bought like one house a year for a couple years, but now I need to take 1 year off. Like, and it's not the end of the world. But
no, 100%
to your
it's
point,
not.
it's like if something comes up, I will buy something. I don't know.
Yeah, I need you to look at. I didn't even tell you that I looked at this house the other day. I don't think we've talked about it really. And dude, it's great. It's like a 7 bedroom in Dallas, and it's in the township, which is not good. But even though it's
Which
in the
is why you
township,
sold the house that we just talked about, right?
correct. But this is a triplex, so theoretically, even just a duplex, I could do four downstairs, three upstairs, and like I'm golden. You know what I mean? Like because there's like that differentiator. It's not like one house. It's like
Oh
three
yeah, you did
houses in a
send it to me.
sense.
It was like the ugliest house I've ever seen. Like from
Oh,
the front view.
it looks hideous. I've never seen
Yeah.
an uglier building. But
Yeah.
dude, it has the most potential. It is such a good buy. But my realtor went in there and like they loved the upstairs, they loved the downstairs, and then they looked at like I felt it was weird. They went in this one room and there was like a it's like a efficiency apartment, dude. It was tiny. I felt like this woman was living in probably like your master closet. Like
And
it was
that was
disgusting.
the third unit.
That was the third unit, and she was like a crackhead. It was very eerie. Like I'm like they're FaceTiming me, and I'm like seeing this like crackhead in this house that I want to buy, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird. I'm not gonna lie, but I was in love with the house. my realtor and my property manager were in love with the house. They go into the basement and they just got weirded out. They said there was a lot of moisture there. Some of the pipes looked like they were had rust on them. They think like it might have flooded at some point in time and like it wasn't properly repaired. They said some of the floorboards and like seemed a little bit wet and damp and like a little bit soft. And I'm like, okay, like that's a big project, right? A big renovation, but property's listed as like at like 250. If you can get it for like 200 because of all these issues that are going on, or at least just offer 200, right? Contingent on inspections, and then you get like somebody go in there, like it could really be a good house for what we've done and what we've been looking to do. And then like if you're getting that rent, you could refinance it at like, get the appraised value at like 325. It's a good property. I just got real skeptical when like they were talking about the floors and whatnot and the basement and just how it was structured that I just have been kind of dragging my feet, but I'd be curious about putting in like a lowball offer and just seeing what happens.
Does any part of you would consider keeping it as just like a normal rental to kind of diversify your portfolio a little bit, or would you still try and would you do like all three college, or what would be your plan
I
there?
would basically work. I think I would just do it as one house and then label it as a duplex so that like I wouldn't have to have an issue with the township. But I think the profit would be better
So
doing
you
it
would try
my
and do
way.
like 4 and 4 and get 4,000 a month, basically.
I think upstairs could be three max, and then downstairs would be four. So I think it was like seven max,
But then
and
you
then
have
like
this efficiency, which you could get something
yeah,
for.
yeah, but like I feel like the layout of the house will be better as just a duplex and like making that efficiency just a part of like the extra bedroom. Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I didn't move forward with the efficiency was extremely tiny, and it was just like I felt that like you shouldn't have. You're never gonna get somebody that's not a crackhead living there, and like I just couldn't imagine anybody really living there. Like it was just so small that like you'd either need to build that out, you know what I mean, or just eliminate it. And I thought it was better to eliminate it.
Yeah, well,
But it,
we can talk
I'm just
about it more
mulling my
because
decision.
you did send it to me and it looked intriguing. So, is it close to campus?
Yeah, it's probably closer than most of our properties. It's in a good spot. But so one other question I just wanted to throw at you, and I've been like struggling with this, and I haven't talked to you about it yet. But and it's something like we kind of I don't want to say we differ, but maybe I used to be more on your mindset, and I'm slightly changing where I'm coming from. But we've been on the mindset of like even TNT. We're going to take all the money we make from the property. We're just going to leave it all in the property, and then we're going to use that money to buy another property, right? That's been our mindset for TNT. So TDJ is trying to incorporate more of a profit first model. And I know we talked about this like on and off a couple of times,
Yeah.
but long story short, profit first is like you pay yourselves first, and then like you save money from the company after, and then like you're basically just separating different accounts of like how you're separating your money, but it's not all staying in the business. You're actually making a profit from like the company that you're running, and I'm trying to incorporate something, and then even with my properties as well. And as we get into like potentially getting rid of property management or taking property management in, which I think property management in today's day and age with ChatGPT and like a lot of like AI, like that there's a lot of help that you can get in like automating things and like getting questions answered and like trying to run a property more efficiently that I mean, obviously you're still managing it, but I think that you can get a lot of help by using some of these other platforms that it's not as hard as like maybe it used to be. But taking into account of like also taking over property management, the question I'm trying to ask is like if you front load your savings, right? Like you said 6 months per property. I think that's a little bit high. But so say if you did front load 6 months per property for everything that you wanted, would you ever start paying the money to yourself, or would you just leave it in the company and try to buy more properties with that? And like, I'm kind of leaning towards taking some additional money on a monthly perspective to like pay myself for owning the asset.
I mean, it depends on what your goals are. Like, if to me, I want to grow, and I'm not ready to reap the benefits of the real estate that I've bought so far. I don't want to see that money. I don't want to like be tempted to now like obviously we took money out of TNT and we were like we're not going to buy for a little bit. So we did like pay ourselves a little bit, but I mean ultimately we still want to grow and I don't know, I don't know when I'll start to change my mind and maybe, eventually like I will start to pay myself like a consistent percentage, whatever, but like personally, I think if you're fully in growth mode and you don't need to see any of that money, like you can, pay all your bills and stuff with your day job, then I would always kind of just want to leave it in a separate account, like out of sight, out of mind. Come back in a year. Oh, look, like for our account anyway, it's like we come back in a year, like, oh, look, it grew 10 grand. And maybe it takes like 2 or 3 years to actually be able to like buy something with, but that's just because we have one property. So like, multiply that by five and hopefully it's like if we just don't touch it, it could buy us a property every year. So, but again, that's only if your goal is growth. If you're kind of happy with how many units you have and you kind of just want to coast and like have your 6 months and then let's say you do have an expense, then maybe you don't take profit for like 6 months, grow that 6 months expect that 6 months savings back up. But if you don't really want much more than that, then sure, like you could basically take whatever's left over after that like 6 month emergency fund. But so again, it's like personally I know you still want to buy more, but yeah, I think it
Yeah,
depends on
no,
the
it's
goal.
that's fair. And like I appreciate your side of it because I definitely still want to grow and like that's why I want to do that for TNT. I feel like for me, I think there's also like multiple ways to do it too. Like I'm not saying I'm taking 100% of the profit either. And that's
Yeah.
really what I'm struggling with is like what buckets like make sense to like say, okay, I have some cash. I want to say front load the savings. So say if you do, I'd probably cut down to 3 months expenses versus the 6 months. But like maybe 5 grand of property is probably where I'm guesstimating. Putting like 15 in the account, leaving it there, and then doing like a 30, 30, 30 or something like 30% is going to me today, 30% I'm saving for tomorrow, 30% added on to CapEx. Like of like whatever's left over after. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read about like the profit first model a while ago, and I think a lot of it is like a mental thing where it's like you pay yourself 20% or 10%, and then you're like, "Oh wow, that's cool. Like I got an extra $200 coming in. Like I really like this real estate thing." And then it makes you want to go buy more real estate. So then you buy a second house and you're like, "Oh wow, I got $400 now every month." And it just like I guess it like it shows you the reward continuously and makes you want to go buy more and like save money. I don't really have the problem of like wanting to buy real estate. That's what we think about all day. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. I just like to try and keep the accounts separate. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes I do transfer money back and forth, like if I need, money. But
yeah. I mean, everything works until like you need money in a certain account. And it's like, all right, we're trying to do this. And like that's where I'm trying to come up with the concept of okay, if I have X amount of reserves and I still add to those reserves, it should feed itself. And like I do think mentally, maybe to your point, not as much for me, but because I am always wanting to buy real estate, but there is some cool piece to say like, hey, I'm getting $500 a month in my personal account and like what can I do to get that to 550 to 600 to 700 I'm like so to your point that $700 it's not going towards building for real estate but it's also really cool to see that going into like my personal bank account each month and knowing that it's growing there and like how can I either manage the portfolio better or like use the personal income that I have to raise my money over there and then buy real estate again with that. So I'm with you. It was just something I wanted to pick your brain about because I'm trying to calculate all of that out. I actually built a really cool spreadsheet the other day that like because I've always tracked like what I make for my properties and like what I did for TDJs and like what we do for ours by themselves. And I
Yeah.
put this like really cool tracker that has them all together. And it's like 100% of my three, 50% of TNT,
And
33%
it
of
has like all your
TDJ.
monthly cash flow.
Yeah, all the monthly cash flows and like all breaking down. But the cool thing about yours or ours is that you put in that we take out $300 a month and save it for CapEx. And that's already factored into like the final total that we make. So we like theoretically make 300 because I'm just going off like the gross after everything else is paid per se. So I'm like I want to look at this chart. It's like a healthy number. It's really cool, but I want to look at that chart and like take out 15% or whatever for reserves and then like know that I can pay myself what's left, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to take a look at it. I kind of did that like in December with all my properties. So, I mean, just in Excel, but it worked. So,
Cool. All right, well, I feel bad. I kind of hijacked this entire call. I'm not sure if you want to quick do a bathroom update or do you want to save that for another pod at
no,
another
we'll
time? It's
do
up to
like
you.
yeah. We got plenty to talk about, but we can save it for next week's episode.
Okay, cool. I think it was a lot of fun getting caught back up on some of our real estate portfolio. Hopefully, you felt the same way. Hopefully, all of our listeners enjoyed the episode. I thought it was very good in my extremely biased opinion, and we have a lot more that's been happening in our real estate portfolio that we're excited to update you on. So stay tuned to next week's episode.
Yep, thanks. See you later.